Hello and welcome to the AT Collective podcast. I'm Karen Marr and today I have Annabelle Tilbrook with me and I'm very excited to interview Annabelle. I did a training course recently with Annabelle and it was amazing. So we'll go through that further throughout the podcast. But Annabelle, I would love to hear more about who is Annabelle and what's your background?
Yeah, so I am an OT. Slightly embarrassed to say, but now I've been working as an OT for just a bit over 30 years. I've worked here in Australia and in the UK. I've worked in 3 states. I'm originally from Queensland, so I've worked in Queensland, I've worked in Tasmania and in South Australia, probably for the longest time, as well as a little bit in the UK. And almost right from the beginning, I've had an interest. Well, I didn't know at the beginning I had an interest in AT, but yeah, circumstance led me to have an interest in AT. And fortunately for me, I've kind of landed myself in a place where I've been able to develop my skills in that area and taken it from there. So at Novita, I'm part of the assistive, I work for Novita in Adelaide. And I'm part of the assistive technology service there. I'm also a clinical lead OT with supervision responsibilities, carrier caseload, and yeah, role in research as well.
You sound very busy.
Yes.
lots of hats that you're wearing.
Tend to dive in the deep end and then realise after I've done it that maybe I shouldn't have. But anyway, there you
go. Well, let's just start with how we met. So I was doing the Switch Access Measure course, and we'll talk a bit more about it along the way, but could you just run down what the Switch Access Measure training is and the credentialing that you provide for people?
Yeah, so the Switch Access Measure is a assessment tool that we've developed here at Novita, and it really came from, it's been embedded in clinical practice from the beginning. And it came from my experience of realising that we spend a lot of time working with clients on switch training, on trying to work out the right switch technology, and it can be years. And we really had just been functioning in the gut feeling kind of realm of practice of what worked and what didn't work. And we didn't really have a formalised assessment tool to guide us a bit more objectively with that. So that was another diving in the deep end kind of thing. And we started a project here at Novita. Novita's been very generous with their time for this project. It's been a project over the last 12, 13 years now. Started as an honours student project. And now at this point, we're into the second lot of research, validating it as an outcome measure with help from the University of Toronto from Professor Virginia Wright there. So as part of that, she tells us it takes 10 to 15 years to develop an outcome measure. And apparently the evidence in the literature for embedding something into practice is 17 years.
Oh, right.
So yeah, I think we're kind of doing okay and we're definitely embedding it into practice a whole lot sooner than 17 years. So yeah, it's a certified training course now. It's been manualised. There's a to use right now.
So Annabelle, can you tell us something that not many people would know about you?
I spent 2 years working in Scotland for the NHS Highland Community Trust, which was another dive in the deep end sort of experience. I had been working in London and kind of finding a very expensive place. So I decided to make the most of my time in the UK, and I applied for a job in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. And I landed myself a job as the sole paediatric OT for the whole of the Highlands, right across to the west coast, the islands, down to Fort William to the north in John O'Groats. So it was a community paediatric job at covering a maternity leave locum for 12 months. And then I was lucky enough that was extended by 12 months. So I spent 2 years.
Beautiful. So what kind of distances? I'm not very familiar with this actual size of Scotland. What kind of home visit lengths would you kind of?
Well, some trips were day trips on single lane roads with passing lanes. Once a fortnight, I had the job to go down to Fort William, which meant I kind of circumnavigated Loch Ness in my day. So one direction was on the motorway and the other was coming back around the other side on a single lane road to see kids at school down in Fort William, do home visits. Also went across to the west coast, see a little boy with hemiplegia regularly, past this huge mountain range called Torridon, and yeah, just an incredible experience to have done that sort of work.
Yeah, and did you see Nessie?
No, I looked out every single time, you know.
But I'm imagining that it would have been the most beautiful scenery everywhere you went.
Oh, just incredible. And the Scottish people, yes, just so lovely. I used to answer the phone and say my name, and people used to say, you don't need to say your name. I was the first Australian, I think, they'd had at the hospital there. I said, we all know who you are.
Beautiful. And so tell us about your origin story. You said that you've kind of found your passion with working with assistive technology, but where did it all start for you?
So as a new graduate, I went to the University of Queensland. I'm from Queensland originally, and there weren't many paediatric jobs in, pretty tightly held paediatric jobs in Brisbane at that time, and I was really wanting to get into paediatrics. So again, I think it's starting to become a bit of a pattern. I took the plunge, dived in the deep end, and took a job in Hobart at what's now St Giles, I think. And in the very first weeks as a new grad, I was given these 3 little clients with severe dystonia, one of them under 6, another one just commencing school, maybe 2 under 6. And I was given those clients on my caseload more or less straight away and just get on with it. And I'd not done anything to do with assistive technology at uni. I really was in the deep end with these clients. But fortunately, at that time, it was called Rehabilitation Tasmania, had a relationship with Regency Park Rehabilitation Engineering in South Australia, which was the centre for AT in Australia at that time. And I was able to reach out for support. They came down with did seating clinics with us, and they were able to link me up with people back at Regency Park to get some ideas. And this one little boy had been struggling. He'd just got a new communication device. He'd been struggling with direct access using his hands for switching with pretty limited success and just exhausting. And they suggested trying head switching with a particular mounting system. And the first time he tried it, he could just do it. And almost immediately he wrote, I like it 100%, Annabelle. And you could just see the impact that this was going to have on his life. He later learned to control his chair. Regency Park again helped me set him up with a head array for driving, became a competent communicator, did mainstream education. So it kind of just that I was hooked with seeing what assistive technology could do. And I guess that experience has been repeated time, and it's self-perpetuating, I guess, because that experience has been repeated many times.
So look, I'd say that there's therapists out there going, oh, I really want to do that kind of work. It sounds fulfilling and empowering, dignifying, but they may not have the on-the-ground supervision right then and there. And I guess the market or the way positions are set up is quite different nowadays.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to someone who wants to get into the area? Obviously, it's very complex, and you did it as a relatively new grad. It's complex, but you had that supervision, you had that real mentoring along the way. What would you recommend to people who are interested in it but not sure where to start?
Yeah, I think just joining the Errata community, I think, is a really good starting point. There's just a lot of good people. It's a community of people around Australia with similar drive, similar passion. So becoming part of that community, part of the learning community that enables every 2 years with conferences. And really, if you're a sole practitioner, try to seek out the people that you might be able to seek supervision support from, even if it's just occasional around a specific client need. I've always landed myself in a bigger organisation because I really think this whole area of practice, you can't operate in a silo. AT is a team event to really make a difference. So trying to embed yourself in a team initially to just get that experience, learn from others. You learn so much from your colleagues, from others, and you learn a lot from the clients as well. But really, it's all about building that network and getting someone to support you to build that network, I think.
Yeah, because we want more people to work in this area. but it's
Absolutely.
understanding how to grow your skills in a safe way and not
Yes.
walk into something and then go, well, and look, it can happen. You can walk into a situation and you go, look, I don't think I'm the right therapist for this situation. We might need to refer you on. And that's okay too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you can learn through that process. I mean, myself, I'm more than willing to, when that happens, to involve the primary therapist in the process and use it as a learning experience. I think I'm kind of at the stage of my career now when it's about knowledge translation and helping the next generation the way I was supported to develop my skills. So it's kind of a really nice stage in my career to be at, I think. Someone once said to me that each generation stands on the shoulders of the last generation. I kind of feel, yeah, people are starting to stand on my shoulders now, it's just great to see people come into the area and suddenly they too realise just what an impact this can have on people's lives, and start to see those really special moments as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. So let's talk a bit, dig into a little bit further the types of assistive technology that you like to use and that you work with.
Yeah, so I think I really have specialised in just the high-tech side of assistive technology. So I've pretty limited experience on the home mod side, pretty limited experience. I have done it in my time, but in the ADL type space. I did a little bit of seating early on, which I think has been invaluable because often seating is kind of the basis for someone being successful with assistive technology. So understanding the assessment process and the principles have been really helpful. But really now my specialty is alternative access to AAC, plus helping people who have difficulty with direct access, but we can improve it with certain things. Computer access technologies, kind of a whole gamut of things there, and the new and emerging things, eye gaze technology, switching technologies. Also have a real passion for literacy support software and writing support software. And I think that runs across the needs of a lot of different areas of disability. Often in the ASD population, there's this co-condition of a difficulty with dysgraphia, with reading, with dyslexia, and the assistive technologies now are really like putting on a pair of glasses in terms of some of the technologies to assist with reading and writing now.
So that's working with the speeches?
What's
your role in that area?
The speeches tend to work on the actual literacy itself, on phonics, that kind of side of things, whereas this is technology like read-write, where the tech itself will help with grammar, it will help with proofreading, it will help with note-taking. So it's tech that can do what sometimes you might otherwise need a person sitting beside you to do. The voice controlled tech, like if writing is really just too hard, there are other ways to do things.
I'm going to bring this up here because I think it fits with this. How do you feel about using things like ChatGPT and different AI kind of solutions?
Yeah.
Are you working with that with people very much?
Not as yet. I've only just started experimenting with it myself and understanding how it works. But I think, yeah, maybe it does have applications in this area. I don't think it ever takes completely, from my experience of trying to use it myself, you still need the human input to kind of tidy it up at the end and have an awareness of what works to the context that you're trying to work in. So yeah, maybe it does. I don't really understand quite yet where that's going.
I think it might make us
all
all
a lot. Who says he's using it with his engineering, so I'm a bit worried about that.
I think it's going to make us all really lazy, actually.
Yeah.
But I can see that there's a space for it with understanding people with physical limitations and how to get the bulk of the information out. Plus, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Alternative access to power mobility is the other big area, as starting with really young children. Also, just people who have been missed along the way, that could possibly be independently mobile with power mobility, but no one's really tweaked to the alternative ways that they could be doing it.
And in the SAM training, I noticed, obviously I noticed we did the sections where we had very, very young children and they were using switch access to move the chair forward and things like that. And I just wonder how many people might be out there, like you said, who actually other therapists might have gone, they can't use switch access. They can't control their wheelchair. But I really like doing the SAM training and challenging that of going, let's assume people are competent and then work to improve what we provide rather than, dissing people off and saying, yeah. And it's hard. Like you just said that it could take you a couple of years to get the switches right.
Yeah. Had an example recently of a 12-year-old, one of twins with quite severe CP, but this particular twin, she, with effort, can direct access an iPad. So all our focus had been on her direct access of her device. She needs to use AAC for an extended period, both girls in manual wheelchairs. So her focus had been on direct access. And I just looked at her one day and I thought, she couldn't control a joystick. She didn't have the range or the dexterity to do that. So I had never been offered power mobility. And one day I just looked at her and thought, you've got fantastic head control. Why have we never offered you a head array to see if you can drive? And the first time she tried it, she was navigating obstacle courses. And just suddenly there was some real independence. Can you imagine 12 years of not being able to move yourself anywhere? And suddenly she could navigate around. Yeah, incredible. So now she has her own funded system. It's let others realizing that she's got the capability, seeing that she has the capability and turning that system on for her and letting her use it now is the barrier.
That's amazing. And so what ages do you start looking at access?
As soon as possible, because that passivity can start really early if we don't give opportunities. So definitely even under 1, starting to do things like that. I've had several clients with SMA, rapidly deteriorating SMA, even giving those children access really on. Sometimes switching is only fun, kind of joyful thing that families, active play that they can engage in with their children. So just even simple things for that population. But if you can introduce power mobility, it's really powerful.
Because it's not just about movement, it's cognitive development and all those other areas, isn't it?
It's absolutely. And socialization, all of that.
Yeah, amazing some of the outcomes that you've got. And I guess this is probably going to answer the next question, which I love to, really the whole point of the podcast is asking people why they do what they do. Why do you wear so many hats and put yourself through so many challenging situations? Because you've got a lot on your plate, but you still say yes. But why do you do what you do?
I think it's just the impact that this has on quality of life. It sounds a bit coy, but it actually is a privilege to be involved with all the clients and just see the impact of what technology can do. I have our team goes into the SA Health Spinal Unit here, and saying usually we have to wait until the client has an NDIS plan, often wait until they're medically stable. So it can be 6 months, even 12 months sometimes that they've been an inpatient. When we finally get to go into the ward, and the ward themselves, they don't have a lot of the high-tech AT. We hold that here. So we get to go into the ward and introduce something for someone who's it's the tetraplegics that we are referred. So often just head movement and speech. Some have a slight shoulder shrug, but not much more than that. And just seeing, when you see hope return into someone's face, it's a pretty special moment to be part of. And I've seen it just changes someone's life trajectory and what's possible to do.
So I know you've got lots and lots of examples there. So you've said about people with spinal cord injury, but are there any other kind of main client groups that you also do this work with?
So obviously work with children and adults with cerebral palsy, but also people with palliative diagnoses with MND, MS. And yeah, being part of people and families' lives at that kind of end of life stage can be confronting, it can be challenging, but again, just being part of helping someone maintain communication right up until the end. Yeah, it's such an important thing, and again, being part of that is a pretty special role to have.
Yeah, I really enjoy working with that area as well. It's like, it's important to not say we're stopping doing this now because, you know, you're at end of life. If you can't answer the phone, then what quality of life is there when you could help someone to communicate, to express their wishes and needs? And it might be as simple as muting the television that they have within their control, but that is important. Every little bit of independence that you can maintain.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Also the work with, you know, I've talked a lot about clients who are probably very cognitively able, but on the other end of the spectrum, clients with severe and multiple disabilities, with cognitive disabilities as well. Yeah, occasions when someone's just been very passive for a very long time, and a lot of underestimation of what they might be capable of. And yeah, once you start to open the door, and I've had the experience again in the last probably six weeks to 2 months with 2 clients through the switching study. These little clients were very, very passive, blank looks on their faces, just everything just happened to them. And just introducing switching at a very early stage, all of a sudden they're more animated, vocalizing more, and it feeds off on those around in their environments. Like, everyone can see what's happening. So yeah, that is just as it's hope in that situation too that suddenly becomes evident.
So I guess for people who are listening, when you're talking about switch access, the switch is only part of what you're talking about, because the switch is connected to something. What are the main things that your switches are connected to?
Obviously iPads these days have given us all sorts of fun stuff that we can do with switches, connecting to music, connecting to switch toys. Switch toys kind of have a lifespan. If you're using the same switch toy over and over again for 6 years, that gets pretty boring. So customizing what you're doing to people's interest levels. If you're a teenager, teenage appropriate music. So really trying to drill down on what they're interested in, and trying to connect the switch to some sort of activity, and giving some choice and control over what they're doing in their lives on a daily basis, by maybe using a single message to request certain things. Or yeah, it's kind of, that's the skill, I guess, is trying to match the right technology to the switch to keep the momentum going and keep it engaging and motivating.
Yeah. Is there any favorite AT you're really passionate about? I know you've said switches, but what about it is you're most passionate about?
Yeah, I don't think there's any one particular technology. There's lots of new and emerging technologies. Recently was shown a new brain control technology, so that's kind of an exciting area as well. Up until now, it hasn't really been at the functional point of functionally useful in people's lives, but maybe that's kind of going to be the next thing that happens. So yeah, there's no one technology, I don't think. And I did read, I think it was a journal article, was saying the longer you work in this field, the more likely you are to prescribe the same thing. And you've got to be really careful to have fresh eyes all the time, and just be aware of what all the options are out there, and try and match the right option, not just assume this situation is so similar to the last one that the same thing is going to work.
How do you keep fresh eyes?
I think it's got to be a conscious effort, and not go into go into a situation with the focus on the person first, not on the technology, not thinking, okay, eye gaze is for this person, I'm going to make it work. Rather looking at the person and together with the person working through all the options, and really in the end they'll tell you which is the right solution, which they feel the most comfortable with. Yeah.
Are there any times that there are challenges and things don't go to plan, and what do you do in those times?
A lot of the time. I think you just always have to be honest and transparent right from the start that this can be a really complex area, and it's not always clear which direction to head in from the beginning, and that often it is trial and error. And when you make mistakes, it's hard, but you have to own them. Seek support, debrief, and bring people with you to try and rectify what has happened. But I think, yeah, honesty and transparency from the start. Life's all about relationships, isn't it? And yeah, the same in this situation. If you've got a good relationship from the beginning and you make an error, it's kind of easier to retrieve things.
So you're saying you're not perfect all the time?
Definitely not, no. And big secret is I'm actually not all that techie. So my husband thinks it's hilarious I work in this area because I'm really not all that techie. I think I'm reasonable at the clinical reasoning process, reasonable at focusing on the person and function. And here at Novita, we have very good technical support. So I have a good awareness, I think, of the products on the market, how they work, but the actual nitty-gritty, we have a very good technical support team here, and we work very closely with them to really get the fine-tuning of everything right. Yeah. I think if you're too techie in this area, it actually is a risk, because you have the risk of focusing on the technology rather than the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes technology just isn't the answer for someone, and knowing when it's not, and not to keep persisting to try and force something on someone. That's quite a skill if this is your area of practice, but it's really important if that's the case that you do that.
Yeah, there are some people that you'll trial a number of things and they'll just say, I'm happy without it. And no, I'm not going to use the switch access to call for personal, use the personal alarm, because actually I'm happy doing it the way I am. But if you introduce it, then at least they know that there's options.
Yeah, so, it's choice and control, isn't it? And dignity of risk. Yeah.
Do you have any role models or people who have helped you to get to where you're at today?
I had pre-thought about this question, and really there's no one single person. It's been, the role models have been clients and families themselves, definitely colleagues along the way. When I arrived at Regency Park, the team there were pretty amazing, with pretty amazing careers already and expertise in this area. So I guess I was like a sponge. So yeah, the privilege of working with those people over an extended period, and people not just from my own discipline, speech pathologists, physiotherapists, rehabilitation engineers, the learning you do as a team is amazing. Yeah, I'd say I've learned something from each and every family that I've been involved with and still am. Professor Virginia Wright is, she's been involved in shaping our switch access measure research and the measure just in general. So she's based at the University of Toronto in Canada, and also at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehab Centre, which is probably one of the places of expertise in the world for paediatric rehab. And very fortunately, Novita has had a long-standing relationship with Holland Bloorview in Canada, and Virginia has been a scholar in residence here at Novita for an extended period of time each year. She's had a little bit of gap with COVID, but hopefully coming back at the end of the year. So her expertise is in the development of paediatric rehab outcome measures. She's probably the world expert in that area. And just having access to her thinking, her guidance, her insight has been incredible. So yeah, I feel incredibly grateful that I've had the opportunity to have her involved. Without her, I don't think we would have got the switch access measure to where it's got to today. We met with her virtually 2 weeks ago, and it was just so good to connect again. And she's immediately in the space, immediately understands where we're at, where there are issues. She understands, yeah, incredible.
The way you talk about the people who have supported you, it almost makes the world sound very small, in that I think I mean, obviously the clients are all around the world, but as far as the people working in this really complex AT space, I'm guessing that there's a handful of people across the world who are those real, really highly skilled in this area. Plus, obviously there are great people in Australia as well, but it's not an everyone kind of scope of practice, is it?
No, I don't think so. You've got to it's got to somehow gel with you as a person. You do have to be passionate, because often it's a long game. I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. Yeah, I keep going until I get to a point where there's some success. But yeah, again, it's that network and knowing who's out there. And as I said before, there's just a lot of good people in this space, and people aren't precious with their knowledge. People are very generous with their knowledge. So yeah, an amazing space to have been able to work in, and the connections that I've developed in the community have been amazing.
So you said Errata is a great way to connect with people across Australia?
Yeah, so I'm assuming people know Errata, the Australian Rehab and Assistive Technology Association. So Errata runs a biannual conference. I think I've been to every one bar one when I had a baby in the last 30 years. And really, it's been my key place of learning and keeping up with the trends in the area, understanding policy. So every 2 years, going to Errata has just kept the drive going and growing those connections. It's kind of like a big family every time we come together, I think, with everyone with similar headset and thinking. And some of those connections I've definitely reached out at times when I've needed to, because sometimes you're the only person in the state trying to work out how to solve this problem, but often there's someone in a different state who has been the only person as well, and they've tried to work it out themselves as well. So yeah, often just one head can't work these things out.
Yeah. Well, it's good to understand that you don't just need to figure this out alone. Bring in the team, even if it's supervision interstate, but also your multi-disc team. It's lots of heads together, plus the client, plus their family, plus their schools. It's bigger than us.
Absolutely. One particular client, and it's stuck with me. Sadly, this client passed away unexpectedly last year. She's probably been the client who's been the most impactful on my thinking and work. But she said, your role is to support me to do what I want to do. And once you've done that, you just need to step back and let me get on with living my life. And it's so true. Sometimes we think we're really important in these families' lives, but actually we're just a facilitator to let them be a person and do what they want to do. And at her funeral, there weren't pictures of her assistive technology, or it was pictures of her out in life doing stuff, which maybe the assistive technology had enabled. But we're a cog in the wheel, but we're not the most important cog.
And the person's so much more important than the AT. Sometimes we get bogged down by the equipment, but it's all about the person and their narrative.
Yeah, and participation is kind of a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? But when you actually see what participation really means, when it's proper participation, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, beautiful. So do you have any three lessons that you'd like to share with us?
So I think it's feeling okay to feel uncomfortable in a situation and not to know all the answers. Particularly, for example, when I go into the spinal unit to someone who's had this traumatic, catastrophic injury, and you kind of see you're the person who's got to sort out the assistive technology, which can be a bit overwhelming at times. Everyone's got a different personality, different context, and how you're going to sort this out. And very natural, I think, to feel uncomfortable in that situation to start with, but I think that's quite normal, and it's actually good to not have a preconceived solution. And then to work together towards a solution. It's okay for it to feel messy for a period. In fact, that's a good thing, I think, because it means you haven't jumped to a conclusion.
Yep.
Yeah. What else? Definitely the AT is a team event. It's not something you can do by yourself. And I think I've already mentioned that you don't have to be techie to work in this space. In fact, it's an advantage if you're not.
Well, there's hope for all of us.
I think people get scared off by the techie part. Like they just think, no, I'm not techie, I can't do this. But it's actually the clinicians with solid clinical reasoning who get the best outcomes.
You know, that is really relieving, because I get it told from my family. They laugh at me and they're like, Mum, you can't even figure out the remote. And it's like, oh, come on. It's like, yeah, well, we like, I'll do it when I need to.
Yeah. Find a good techie person to work with. You definitely need the techie people.
Yes.
But the clinical part it's all clinical.
And we're great at assessing function. So it's okay to own your strengths.
Yeah. Like in the home automation field at the moment, lots of people who are great at knowing what all the home automation technologies is and which technologies they sell, but you see it all the time. If it's supplier driven, the person's function just gets missed all the time, and there'll be solutions put in that the person can't even access the system because they haven't really. OTs are so good at function and understanding function that
No, very, very good reminder. And do you have any favorite quotes that you like to inspire you?
There's a really old one from IBM way back in 1991 that I often repeat. And it's that for people without disabilities, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. And I think for those of us who work in this field, we see that all the time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But my favourite quote is from my client who, once you've provided me with the support, just step back and let me get on with living my life. That's really powerful.
Yes, that is very, very powerful reminder that we're actually not that important in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
And look, we'd love you to tell us a bit more about the SAM Access course that you run and the certificate that you provide. Would you like to share a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the SAM course can be run as a 2-day face-to-face course, or COVID kind of made us flip, and we now deliver it as an 8-week, deliver it as an 8-week online course, which was the one you did, Karen. So it's 8 weeks in succession of 2-hour sessions where we work our way through all the content. So the next course is being offered in October, December this year. I'm making an effort to focus on the current SAM research project has to be finished by the end of this year. So this year, that's where my primary focus is. So just one SAM course at the end of this year. It's open to people around Australia. We have had participants from the UK, randomly even a teacher from Croatia. So, and we keep the group size to 10 to 20. So I don't know what you would say your experience was, Karen, but it's very interactive. People become comfortable to just ask questions, learn from each other, lots of video content, and there's a certification process after that where SAM's based on video scores of video assessments of children doing a predetermined kind of dynamic goal-related switching activity. So post the course, there's some certification tasks which include scoring off 4 videos, getting some feedback, and kind of learning to calibrate how you're scoring, so that we can maintain it as a robust assessment outcome measure over time.
Yeah, and you just mentioned, pediatrics. Number of the videos are for peds, but I came in as an adult therapist. I work with adults primarily, but there's still a lot that I got from it. So who are the right people who might be interested in doing your course?
So we open it up to more than OTs, so definitely OTs, but speech pathologists as well, educators, anyone who is working in this area and interested in gaining more skills and understanding. Even researchers open it up as well. So primarily people working with children or adults who need to use switching technologies and would like to kind of understand the key principles involved and come away with a tool that can give a more structured approach or objective approach to how you're assessing your intervention and how you're deciding on your intervention plan once you've started working with someone.
Yeah, so it's an assessment tool to kind of give a baseline, but from the baseline, it's quite specific in saying, look, you're now looking at the cognitive development, or you're looking at the physical, or, you know, those kind of areas, breaking it down quite tangibly so that you can develop that capacity building plan, instead of just saying, here's your switch, go for it. Go. Like, that's not how switch access kind of works, is it? There's intervention and there's training and growth and skill development. It's a process. It's not a drop, deliver, here we go.
Yeah, and there's definitely tools out there. Linda Burkhardt has developed her stepping stones to switching success, which is 8 kind of developmental stages in Bean's got the switch progression roadmap. So they're really useful tools, but they're not as such assessments. They're kind of models for how to develop skills. The switching access measure breaks it down into, it took us a long time to work out what were all the subcomponents of being successful with switches. So we've ended up with 6 motor skill components, 2 vision skill components, and 8 processing skills components. So it's about far more than just the motor ability to touch and release a switch. There's all those other things to functionally use a switch that you need to take account of. And the measure then helps you pull out where are they doing well, and where are the challenges that you potentially need to focus on. And it might be just their ability to maintain their functional position. So then you focus on seating. So it just helps tease out where you start and how you proceed.
And that can help with funding applications as well.
Absolutely. Like, sometimes it's just very straightforward. This is an adult who can actually use this system really, really well. It's a quick and easy assessment because we score from 0 to 4, with 4 being competent. If they're competent, you're giving 4 scores all the way through. And it's not just your point of view that they're competent. This is a measure that you can use to demonstrate to the NDIS that, yeah, this adult is fully competent with this technology, which hopefully gives a justification that it should be funded.
It sounds like, well, it is a very powerful tool and can be used in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your commitment, because it sounds like a lifelong commitment to get to this point. 12 years plus more to come.
Probably didn't quite realise that at the beginning, but there you go.
What would you have told yourself a decade ago?
Don't do it. No, it's been an amazing experience to get involved in something like this, but equally I will be pleased when the research finishes this year. Yeah,
beautiful. All right, is there anything else you'd like to let the listeners know about your work or Navita or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I just thank you very much for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
So if people want to get in touch with you, are you providing external supervision or mostly within your own team, because you've got a very large team?
Yeah, mostly within our own team. Having said that, myself, along with a few colleagues, are supervising someone at the Royal Darwin Hospital. So it's something we do just occasionally. But yeah, if people are interested in supervision, there may be a way to make that happen, obviously.
Or even those once off, like you said, when you've got the really complex and you just need that sounding board, is there an opportunity for connection for something like that?
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. Even if the client can use some NDIS funding of their own to get in a specialist consult, would be another way to go about that. We have done that occasionally with interstate clients.
Lots of different ways. Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you. We'll put the training links. Have you got those up for the next SAM course in October? Or
yeah, they're up on the website, so I can give you the link to that.
We'll put that on the show notes. But thank you, Annabelle. really appreciate your time and your wealth of experience and your passion for working with assistive technology. But it's not working with assistive technology that's your passion. Your passion, you can hear, it's about changing lives and helping people, no matter what their disability, to be able to participate and live life well. So you are a real inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much.